change your name to laughter. You bring joy to every room. All the voices vanish after hearing such a lovely tune.
Hi, and welcome to Cockatoos with Attitude. Well, today we're going to talk about Peaches. Peaches started laying eggs a couple of months ago. The first one came out, it was a real mess. It was, a yolk, and then albumin, and then after that came out a big blob of calcium. A month later, she laid a normal egg. I mean, normal. The shell was hard. And there was no problem at all with that egg, but after that, she started getting a little bit of blood in her droppings. So took her to the vet, and she went on Baytril for 10 days, antibiotic, and some meloxicam, which is a anti-inflammatory, and it went away. But just today I noticed blood in her droppings again. You know how it is trying to get a veterinary appointment. I mean, they say that the pandemic is over, but propaganda is propaganda. It's here, and we're probably looking at a new wave coming up. So I'm looking at a week to get her to a vet, unless I go with the emergency vet routine, okay? Now, the problem with emergency vet visits is that you don't get as much time, and you really want them to set aside the time to be able to do things like x-rays if necessary, or other procedures. So it's going to be a week to get her to a regular vet visit, and during that time I informed them I'll be putting her on meloxicam. So she's going to be getting 0.15 of the standard meloxicam. That's the headless bird there, that's sugar. Well, she's not really headless, but she looks like that a lot. It must be nice to have 27 vertebrae in your neck instead of the paltry few we have in human necks. That's the pet my beak look. Do I have to pet that beak? I do. So as much as I'd like to get her in right now, unless the situation gets seriously worse, it's better to get that longer vet appointment. It's not just that it's a long drive. It is a long drive, and it take 3 hours out of my day. That means they don't get to go outside, and there's a whole bunch of other negative effects that happen. But that's not the major issue. The major issue is she needs a long appointment where any necessary work can be done to try to figure out what's going on. And she had blood work done, so she doesn't need that. We'll do it again if the good doc decides that's what we should do, but it's more likely he's going to use a speculum and look inside to see what's going on down there, and then possibly x-rays. He may do a fecal exam, although, that's usually just for parasites and things like that. Not sure what he's going to do. This is a tough one. I mean, when you get a bird that has that kind of bleeding out of the cloaca, I hear you, sugar, and so does everybody else. When you have that kind of bleeding, it's really difficult to tell what's going on. It's not like we can go and do, a CAT scan or something like that. It's For birds, there are a couple of places in the country where you can do that kind of thing, but generally, even though we're in a good area for veterinary care, it's not something that you can get. So this is an important point. You should always check their droppings out. Now you're going to see unusual droppings overnight. Okay, the volume may be very high overnight, or it may be scant. There may be an unequal amount of the three constituents of poop, which is the liquid urine, which is clear, and the urates, which are either, depending on the bird, they'll either be kind of a cream color or they'll be white. And then there's those little strings that come out of feces, and they should be string-like. Okay, if they're broken up and they're not string-like, well, that's diarrhea. A whole bunch of extra urine is not. Okay. If you see extra urine, and that's the clear liquid, like 2 or 3 times what you normally see, and that goes on for a day or two, that means that the renal shunt, which humans, mammals don't have, that means that the waste is bypassing the liver and going straight to the kidneys. They need to go in and get an antibiotic, and when I did that, it was 7 shots into Chloe's chest. So, but you look to see what's going on. Now, if they've eaten something unusual, you may get different coloration. She likes to eat a lot of, Peaches likes to eat a lot of blueberries. So it's hard to see something like blood in the poop. And what happens is, if it comes dripping out when they move, then you can see it a little easier. Or you can have a microscope so you can look. And I do the microscopic examination fairly regularly, but you got 12 birds, you're not going to be able to do every bird's, run a look at their poop sample to see what's going on under a microscope every day. You're normally going to do maybe that once a month for each of the birds. And then if you have an emergency case like this one down here, then you will do it for that bird more frequently, like every day until the problem is resolved. So yeah, I didn't even have to do a microscope. There was definitely all the evidence you needed, because it was a nice bright red spot, and that's what it's going to look like. When you're looking at berries, it won't be that color. It's also important to note what the situation is. She had laid these 2 eggs before, so that's something that the vet's going to need to know. But these precursors, such as a change in what they eat, or egg laying, or change in activity level, those all add up. And you see a bird start lowering its activity level, and this is normal for over here. This is what Lucy does, right? She sits over there and looks out until it's about time for us to go in, and she comes over and goes, "Pretty bird." And that's what Lucy does. So you're going to check their food, you're going to check what comes out, you're going to check their weight. You start to see the weight drop. If it drops by 5%, wherever their average weight is, let's say they're somewhere between 640 and 650 average, and you see it drop to 615, and then you're really starting to keep a look at it. It starts to drop under 600, and you're headed to the vet, right? So her weight's right in where it should be. You haven't had any problem with the weight. It's just that she has these little drops of blood coming out, so something's not right inside. And she has problems with her spine and her neck. Her spine's there's only 2 little spots that flex in the spine, and they don't flex much. Okay, we're talking tiny bit of flexing. She has arthritis there, and then she has the 6 fused vertebrae in her neck. And I did notice last week that her activity level was dropping a little bit, so that set me to watch even closer what's going on. She's starting to take naps at night. That's not normal. So you'd walk by her cage and she'd have her eyes closed, and you talk to her, she'd open them right up, but that's not normal. So I've been watching a little closer. So once we go to the vet and we get some kind of determination, of course, we'll let all the patrons and members know what's going on. Yes, I hear you. I know what you want. I know what you want. Pet the beak, pet the beak. Yeah. You're going to let the secret out that you're not really as quiet as everybody thinks you are. People seem to think she doesn't ever do anything. She just has an issue when I have a camera on. If I've got a camera on Sugar and she knows I'm talking to her, she normally won't even show this kind of activity. She'll sit there like a stone. And people will think, wow, she's really out of it. No, she's not. She's watching everything. And if you don't think so, try walking up to me. She'll jump right out of that so-called stone statue look and start, her crest will go up, her wings will come out, and she'll start singing. It sounds like a cute little song, but basically it's, if you mess with my dad, I'll kill you. Yeah, isn't that right? Yeah. You're going to let the secret out that you're not, that you're not all that quiet. And she's not. Normally she's pretty busy. There is an exception that she likes the one spot in the socialization room to sit, and she doesn't do much there. I can't get her to sit anywhere else. She won't move around in that room. Out here, she moves all over the place. She's got her pattern. She goes and sits in one spot and preens for about half an hour. Then she comes down to me and wants to be petted on the beak. Then she'll go somewhere and preen for a while. Then she'll mess around, chase salamanders, something like that. So, won't you, girl? Won't you?
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
The Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.